Welcome, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here to moderate this conversation, this very important discussion we're having on women's health. It's an area that affects every single one of us, and it still carries so many stigmas. Our goal today is to have an open conversation to empower all of us here about motherhood, self-care, intimate health, with a special focus on pelvic health, thanks to our amazing partner, Uresta. So we have an incredible lineup of ladies today. Thank you so much for joining me. And they're going to bring their unique expertise and experience to everyone here, and some humor. And I'm going to introduce the panelists now. So let's start with Lauren. To my left, Lauren is the visionary CEO behind Uresta, our partner today, a brand that empowers women to take control of pelvic health. It impacts over a third of women, and I can't believe I didn't know that, on a daily basis. And through innovative solutions, Lauren's work is breaking down stigmas and providing real practical support for women who are navigating pelvic health issues. And if you are a woman, you are navigating a pelvic health issue. So if you want to follow Lauren, she's at myuresta on Instagram. And now I'm going to introduce Alyce Chan. She's a New York-based comedian. She's actually performing tomorrow night on the West Side. So if anybody wants to go over there. West Side Comedy Club?
West Side Comedy Club.
West Side Comedy. So she blends humor with an unfiltered chaos of motherhood. Alyce offers a hilarious take on the challenges of balancing family, career, and self, all while keeping her community entertained and inspired, which is very important. And to her left is Becs Gentry. Becs is a fitness expert, a Peloton instructor, and a wellness advocate. She's dedicated to making fitness and mental well-being accessible to everyone. Becs helps her community prioritize holistic health from movement to mindset, creating a balanced approach to well-being. And her Instagram is at Becs Gentry, and Alyce's is at MomComNYC. So I love that. And just a little bit about me. I am the founder of Purist Magazine. It is also a website. It also has a lot of social channels. It is all about health and wellness. We are about 8 years old, so we launched when no one was thinking about their health. And then all of a sudden COVID hit and everyone pivoted towards that. And I feel very empowered myself because I've been on this journey to become a nutritionist and to share every bit of knowledge that I have and that I'm learning with my audience. And to be able to be here today is a great honor. So thank you for including me, Lauren. I appreciate that. So we're going to get right to it. Breaking the stigmas around women's health is our first topic. So women's health is shrouded in stigma still to this day, even with all of these amazing podcasters and celebrities talking about it. Whether it's periods, postpartum changes, or menopause, why do you think these conversations are still so taboo, and how can we work together to change that? I'm going to start with you, Alyce.
Oh, wow. Thanks. I'm not an expert, but I am going through, I've self-diagnosed myself as going through perimenopause, brain fog and all that stuff. And I don't feel women want to talk about it because they feel ashamed and they don't know about it because people weren't talking about it. I think I'm seeing a lot more people more comfortable talking about it. And I'm definitely comfortable talking about it and learning about it because I think even our own doctors don't know, and we can get misinformed. And I think I like to put a humor spin to it so people will feel comfortable acknowledging, oh, this is probably what I have, and maybe I will seek an expert, not Alyce, but I will seek an expert. Maybe this is something that triggers something in them. And I have fun doing it. I think, growing old is a privilege, aging is a privilege, and this is kind of like a next phase for a lot of women who are, having children, done having children. And I think it's very important that we keep this conversation happening, especially with our partners, and also like our male acquaintances and friends should also know what's happening to women's bodies.
That's a really good point. How many women get to talk to their partners about it really in detail without feeling that shame or that judgment?
Right. Yeah. And then I make sure my husband knows about it. He knows what perimenopause is. Like we're reading this. I'm sharing articles. Like one time I yelled at my kids too loud and I peed my pants. I'm like, I just peed my pants. And he's like, you did? I'm like, yeah, this is what happens. Like he knows my bladder function or lack of function now. So, and he knows today, I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about bladder leaks today. So it's very important.
It's so good to attach humor to this too, because they're not easy things to say out loud, especially with one's own children. So Lauren, tell us how Uresta is actively breaking down these stigmas.
So I think you touched on this a little bit, but I think talking about it's really important. Like you said, you didn't know that 1 in 3 women, so the stat is 1 in 3 women after the age of 30 suffer from this, and then it only goes up. So it's 1 in 2 by time of menopause, and 50% of women when they're exercising. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions that contribute to shame around it. So a lot of women think it's like an elderly woman's issue. Well, that's not true. We have a lot of women in even their 20s, 30s, 40s using Uresta. So I've really focused on, okay, let's get real women in their 30s to do a testimonial for us and share their story. I think another misconception is that it's a weight issue. So I've had, unfortunately, women tell me that they've brought this up with their doctor and they've suggested that maybe they should lose weight. There's no one better than a 30-year-old woman who's fit, active, not overweight, sharing her story to really help take away that shame. And then I think also this, notion that it's a mother's issue, or if you've carried a baby, that you're gonna have this issue. There's lots of reasons why you might have incontinence and never have carried a baby. And so that's also really important too, because I think a lot of women, say, oh, it's my mommy bladder, or my kids were worth it. But for women who have never carried a child, that's even more isolating, right? So again, breaking that down. And I think humor is really important. It's one of the reasons why I wanted Alyce here. As you said, you're not an expert, but it's really, to me, it's really important because if we're all laughing at the same joke about bladder leakage, it means we're relating to it. And I've seen a lot of content on social go viral joking about this topic. So I think that's really important too.
Yeah, good. Okay, so Becs, I'm going to bring you in now to the power of self-care and prioritizing ourselves. Women are often expected to do it all, but that can take a toll on our physical and mental well-being. How do you personally prioritize self-care, and what advice do you have for other women struggling to do the same? And how important is it to put yourself first?
Oh my gosh, huge. To me, personally, I think one of the biggest things when I had my daughter was rediscovering the new version of me and who a mother is in my role. And it's okay to wear different hats. I have to. You know what I do for a living? The lights go on. I'm a completely different person. I've gone through divorce on camera. I've gone through pregnancy loss. And when those lights go on, it's like you just have to go, ugh. Nothing else matters. You just have to be there and present. And I think that kind of helped me practice that form of self-care of, okay, I do need to put myself first in order to be the greatest mother I can be for Tallulah, to be the greatest instructor I can be, greatest partner, and so on. So I think acknowledging, and again, it goes back to comedy. Yeah, fine. If you suddenly look at someone and you're both laughing about it, then you have that conversation. And there's so many things in women's health that are huge stigma attached to them. Pregnancy loss, just because I've already mentioned it, it's a huge one that people don't talk about until they do. And then you're just gushing with conversation to people. So I think self-care, we could go on about it. Everybody has their own different self-care regimes. I'm sure we all do lots of different ones. But for me, it's prioritizing myself and what I need in that day, week, month, moment that's going to get me to be the best. And sometimes it is acknowledging, okay, when I go for, I'm going to say running because I'm a runner, when I go for a run, I'm experiencing some bladder leakage. What can I do about it? I don't just have to accept it. As you say, it's not just a mummy bladder or an age thing or something else going on. I can do something. And just like that run was a goal to do something, to change something, or that workout, just act on it. And that isn't selfish. It's just that extra time you're going to research a new product. That's great. That's awesome. It's education. And I think we need to strive not just for like face masks, which are amazing all the time. But we need to strive for self-care and education as well, self-education within that bucket.
Yeah, I think also just to echo that, in Purist, we talk about the pillars of wellness ad nauseum. So it's just the constant reminding of people how important it is to breathe, to be mindful, to move your body, to look at what you're eating and how you can make, better choices for yourself. How important is sleep? Why do we need to hydrate? Like just the constant, it's like being a mother. You're a broken record, repeating yourself over and over to the point where you just say, please, I hope they heard that like 700 times, times and then maybe they took an ounce of it. And you know what? It's the same thing with my readers. I just constantly repeat every issue. There's a story about meditation and mindfulness. There's something about breath work. There's something about, movement and just the basics. Because as, science has proven for thousands of years, those have been the tools by which we heal ourselves. And I don't call it self-care, I call it soul care. Because you're literally doing these things to stay ahead of your health, of your good health, So Alyce, how do you find humor and balance in all the chaos?
Balance is very tricky because I feel like you really can't have it all. Like when I'm touring, I'm leaving my family. So I'm gonna be missing out on my family time. But because I have a supportive spouse, that's very helpful. I don't have family around. I don't have my parents around to help, or my in-laws are, they're like an hour drive, but I can still get some help. But you need help. You need a community. You need support in order to do your things. And my form of self-care is really doing my craft, getting better at my craft and traveling and really working on it and hanging out with the people that I can relate to and who have the same interests. So there really isn't a balance, but there's a give and take. And I'll have to compromise a little, like knowing what I'm going to be missing to gain what I have for the other bucket. So there's that, and I just have to manage it better. I'm terrible at managing guilt, and so I'm reframing that mindset and throwing that word away, the guilt, because I'm like, oh, I should take my kids to the, play in the snow, and I have the worst time doing it because I hate being in the snow, and but I know that they're happy about it, and then I'm like, and I beat myself up. I'm like, no, but they're happy. I gotta be a good mom. I gotta be in the cold and watching them, play with ice, and so that's something I'm still battling with.
Well, that's also conditioning. Like you do that enough,
yes.
And you'll just do it.
Yeah.
And you'll stop feeling like I hate the snow. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
and I'll put a time limit. Like, I used to be 2 hours or whenever you want to go home. I'm like, nope, 30 minutes. Or sit in the car and watch them play in the ice.
Or send your husband.
Okay, let's talk about pelvic health. This is overlooked, but it's essential to talk about. One of the biggest yet least discussed aspects of women's health is pelvic health. Many women don't realize that things like bladder leaks are very common, or that there are simple solutions available. Certainly, Uresta's created one for us. Lauren, can you tell us about Uresta's mission and why this conversation is so important?
Yeah, so I think if there's one thing I want people to take away, it's that bladder leakage is a huge quality of life issue for women. I've talked to tons of women on this topic. It creates anxiety, it creates, they limit the activities, they stop running, participating in a sports team, they're uncomfortable, they're worried about people, smelling them. And at Uresta, we're really trying to get women to challenge the status quo, which is that 80% of women are using absorbent products to manage their leaks. So this is pads or reusable underwear, and that's really not doing anything to improve your quality of life. And, I think, we've talked a little bit about this already, but I think a lot of women might bring this up with their doctor. They don't think there's a solution, or maybe it's not life-threatening. And they sort of just kind of suck it up and tolerate it. And I mean, I've talked to women who are like, oh, my bladder leakage isn't that bad. But then they proceed to tell me I map my day out through access to washrooms, or I keep extra underwear in my car and at my desk at work. Or, I had one woman tell me her bladder leakage wasn't that bad, but she bought her house because of the proximity of the bathroom to the bed. So it's just crazy, how many, it just impacts their entire life, and it's a chronic issue. It's not something that comes and goes. It's something that can be daily. And so I think really at Uresta, we're trying to really challenge women to do something about it. With Uresta, it's actually stopping those leaks from happening in the first place, so you don't have to worry about. You take away the anxiety, you take away the leaks, the odor, the discomfort. And we get the most amazing messages from women who try Uresta. And we say game-changing bladder support on our box, and it sounds kind of cheesy, but a lot of women message us and go it's actually it is a game changer. And I wish I knew about this 10 or 15 years ago, because I've been holding back on so many things.
I like that. It's so important to talk about it with everyone you can. That's the other thing. It's just the silence around it. There's no one to talk to but your OBGYN. That can't be enough. So, Becs, what are you seeing in your community of female runners?
It's difficult. Laura and I were talking about this earlier, because so many people think, oh, it's a given, as you said. Once you have a baby or getting older, it's just something that's going to happen. But then on the flip side, there's a lot of pelvic floor therapists who are like, no, it isn't a given, and it shouldn't happen to everybody. But there are ways that you can train your pelvic floor to help. And I think that was one of my first questions to us, to Lauren today, in order to feedback to my community, was this isn't that's it. It's a solve. This is such a fantastic way to help in the moment, give you the confidence to go and do the running, go and do whatever high intensity exercise or just be, whilst using Uresta, but also then work with a pelvic floor therapist who can help you train your body to also go past the bladder leakage. So I think it's having the confidence, and the other products that have been out there have been great in building it. Everything has to start somewhere. We have to have that first level of the absorbing underwear, there was a whole brand that did workout kit. That was great. And I use them after I had my daughter. And that is it. It's just understanding that there are levels to go to. And I think it's reeling it back as well. And this comes from a place of love, of even as a professional runner. I had to stop running after I had my daughter. And it was really painful, because running is how I identify as myself in many ways. And I had to figure out how to get back into my fitness. I wish I'd had this back then. But it's understanding to give yourself grace, to step back and not just try and power through. And that's the worst thing we can do as women. I think we live in a society now where we all want to be this hustler thing. And I don't subscribe to that. I just don't. A lot of my colleagues do, and that's their brand, and that's great. But I just do not subscribe to the hustler vibe. You can hustle in your own way, but we need peace. We need meditation. We need calm. That's the time when you reflect on what's actually going on in your body truthfully, in those down times, in those moments where you're not kicking ass running around New York at 100 miles an hour. And you hear, okay, this is better. Or you size down in the rest and you realize, oh, actually, I ran today and I didn't have any leakage. This is great. I'm making changes for myself. So everything's interconnected. So for me, as I trained in running in the past before my daughter, I then had to kind of refocus on pelvic floor training. What is this? This is brand new. And I like a challenge. So there we are. But it's using the tools that we have, that it's not something that you can learn in NASM, goodness bless it, the sports training. No one knows what that is, but it's the worst thing in the world. And it's not something you learn about. So again, it's all comes back to educating ourselves and using the brands as education and tools to better up.
What is pelvic floor training?
Oh, okay. I'm not a pelvic floor. Are there any pelvic floor therapists? Yeah, there's a few. Yeah. Therapists. Pelvic floor queens. And yet, there you are. So I'm not going to speak to it because these two wonderful women can talk to anyone about it in depth and professionally. But it is essentially you focusing on your pelvic floor to retrain the muscles that were, can I say, stretched in birthing or aging or any other reasons, multiple reasons, as Laura said, why women might go through this. And it's training those muscles to get stronger, just like you would in the gym. You know, bicep curls, your bicep looking better. It's the same things, right? And again, I will leave it over to them to talk about it to anyone privately. But it's essentially, think of it as a new training plan for something you're doing.
Thank you, Becs. Alyce, can you share a personal experience on this topic?
I have so many stories. I don't know. I did have to stop running. I'm originally from Vancouver, and there's a lot of runners because it's all nature. It's gorgeous. It's great for running. And after my first baby stopped running, and I had to accept that. I thought that was like my acceptance until I talked to Lauren. I was like, oh, maybe I will try running again. I was at a grocery store with my two kids. This was like years ago, but this could happen last week as well. And I sneezed and I peed myself. And I was wearing shorts and it was just streaming down my leg. And then I see a friend coming by and I'm like, I can't talk to her right now because I have pee on my leg. So that was really embarrassing. And there's many times where I yell too loud and I pee at home, which is fine because then I can just change my underwear. And I have this joke where like I never get to pee alone now because my kids are always around or the dog is around or someone needs a Wi-Fi. And you know, the one time I got to pee alone, I was at aisle 9 at Costco when I sneezed, and I felt good because I was alone, but I still had a stream of pee. And I map myself too. Like, so when we're after a restaurant, when we get in the car, I asked my husband, like, we're not going to any other stops, so we're going straight home. He's like, well, we wanted to get ice cream. I'm like, okay, then I have to go to the bathroom before. You need to tell me what's ahead. And it is very inconvenient. And that's how I've been living my life for the past like 10 years. And I would love to change that because then I don't have to worry about that.
Wow, that's intense. Okay. So no, it's real, and it's so good that you're talking about it, and you know the fact that you can put women at ease through talking about it with a sense of humor is really important. So I think that's why that's happening to you, so that you can tell that story. Yeah.
My bladder, this is and I'll continue to tell this story.
It's good material, but it also helps.
It is great
but you're
material.
helping, you know. And laughter is the best medicine too, right? So let's talk about motherhood. It's this beautiful chaos, and it comes with so many unexpected physical and emotional changes. What's one thing you wish someone had told you before you became a mom? Let's start with you, Lauren.
Well, I'm not a mom yet. I'm actually expecting my first child. Yeah, so thank you. So I'm having a boy in May. But I think one thing that I've learned, and I've talked about this already, it's not just a mom issue. I keep wanting to emphasize that because aging and hormones do play a role in bladder leakage. But when you are pregnant, you are growing a baby for 9 months. You know, there's a lot of weight that has been put on your bladder and your pelvic floor and all the muscles. And so of course that's gonna contribute to the issue. But I think one thing women don't, and I hear this all the time, they're like, oh, I got a C-section, so like I don't have this issue. Like even though you had a C-section, like your body prepared for a vaginal birth for 9 months. And that means like we've heard, some of us were talking about this earlier, like there's hormones in our body that like relax our joints and our muscles and our hips so that we can accommodate for that vaginal birth. You're talking about our feet getting bigger and all these different things. And so just because you had a C-section doesn't mean, or you know, relatively easy vaginal birth, that doesn't mean that, you know, you're not susceptible to injury. And I think what women don't realize that it can take up to a year, sometimes even longer, for your pelvic floor to to recover. And I see a lot of women, and like, it's interesting talking about your experience with running. And you know, there's a lot of pressure. Like, women want to get back into working out because they want to get back to their post-baby body. And a big part of it is mental health for sure. But if you're getting back into some of those exercises too early, and there are exercises you can do, I think women don't realize sometimes they could be actually doing like long-term permanent damage. So I've talked to women, like, we haven't talked about like pelvic organ prolapse, but that's something that's hard to reverse without surgery. And so I wish more women knew about that recovery, and that 6 weeks mark and that clearance from your OB doesn't really mean a lot. So yeah, I wish more women knew.
It's really interesting.
About that. Yeah.
Know that either.
Yeah, I know.
And I have 3 kids.
I know.
And I go to the best top OBGYN in New York City because I grew up in New York City. Since I was 17, I've been going to the same OBGYN. Because I told my mom I want one doctor, I want him to be able to deliver my kids and everything. And he's so knowledgeable, but he doesn't share those things, you know?
Yeah.
And when I walk in there after I turn 50, he was like, you need to be going on, you know, hormones. Like, that needs to start. I was like, but I'm not in menopause. Like, I'm not even in perimenopause. And he was like, well, too bad. Like, if you want to avoid that, you should start now. So, you know, knowledge is power. And it's really important. I preach this a lot in Purist, is to be your own best doctor. You know, learn as much as you can about the issues that you're dealing with, because there's a solution. You know, you just have to dig a little deeper sometimes, especially when it comes to pelvic health. Okay, so Alyce, give me your take on unrealistic expectations.
I wish someone told me that I'd be tired all the time. I don't know how that would have helped me. And also, I didn't know that I would be in charge of everyone's meals. Like, until like basically they move out of the house, or until I die or something like that. Yes. What was the question?
Motherhood has so many unexpected emotional and physical challenges.
Yeah.
What's one thing you wish someone had told you before you became a mom?
The tired part, that I would need to live close to my parents for help. And I would have moved back to Vancouver, but I stayed in New York. And now it's like, I don't have any help. So, yeah. Yeah, so move like near community. You need a village. And now I know what that means. It's so helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Wow. And that's also a big pillar of wellness, is to maintain your community, you know, of friends and family, because you need each other. Becs, how do you balance all of this? What's one thing you wish someone had told you before you became a mom?
Don't have 2 dogs. Yeah. Love them. And if anyone wants one, talk to me out. I think it would be figuring out how much love changes for yourself, for your partner, for your dogs, for your other family. Like, it does change, because maybe you and your partner, when you're a little nucleus, you got the dogs coming in. My cat does couch being zoo forever. She's my sidekick. And then Tallulah arrived, and all of a sudden, it was just like, bye, everyone else. I don't care. Like, honestly, my partner fell down the stairs the other day, and I was just like, you all right? He's like, bye, thanks. But like, if Tallulah grazes herself, I'm like, oh! And so it's just, and yeah, it's changing that, but not having guilt about it. And I think the mom guilt, the, you know, dog mom, human mom, whatever you are, it's wild, and it is never ending. It's unrelenting. If you don't have it about one thing, you have about something else, and it's traumatic, I think. But reading through it and understanding, like, the dogs will be fine. They're maybe a little depressed right now, but one day when summer comes back, they're already better this week. But it's, you know, you look at them, you see sad eyes because they haven't been out for long walks. And your partner's like, hey, we haven't texted him forever. Yeah, everyone's pulling me in every direction. Just back off for a minute. And to not have that guilt of saying, just leave me alone. Just let me just go and be Becs for an hour and do whatever I need to do to eradicate that guilt. And it's not a bad thing. So
It's also wild, like, how you watch your baby sleep versus how you watch your spouse.
You pray, let's go to sleep.
That might change for you.
Yeah. You're looking at your husband.
I've never watched him sleep that much. Unless I can't sleep. I'm like, damn it. I wish I could sleep right now.
Yeah. Why do we do that? We watch them sleep on the monitor when we should be sleeping, and we look through baby photos.
I worry.
And we're like, oh my goodness, so cute. Like,
I worry.
I think for me, the one thing I wish someone had told me is that, as a positive, is that I would have the capacity to expand as a woman in ways I'd never imagined. So anything that I thought that I could do that much more. And as a mother, it's an incredible feeling to know that you can really keep expanding as a woman, as a partner, as a friend, as a human being. And in that way, you will be able to help create good humans. You know, that's really our role, is to create good humans, you know. And if I had known then that would happen to me, then I think I would have just leapt into it with so much more vim and vigor than I did, you know, and all of those things that we experience along the way that we suffer through might have been a little bit less, I guess, grievous, intense, you know. But I think that's like a positive thing that like women should share with each other before, you know, they go through that process. So that's my advice to you. That's my words of wisdom to you. So one key takeaway for women in the audience, if you could leave our audience with one piece of advice about their health, self-care, or confidence, what would it be? Let's start with you, Lauren.
I think the one thing I would take away, and we talk a little bit about this in our brand manifesto, that's on our part of our packaging, is don't make do. Like, bladder leakage is one sort of health issue that's inconvenient. It's not non-life threatening, but there's so many other ones. And I just think, like, don't make do with like half-assed solutions. You know, if you bring it up with your doctor and they don't necessarily have a solution for you, that doesn't mean that there isn't one. I come from a family of physicians. Like, it takes a really long time for new technologies and solutions to make it to them. And so do your research, think about how these little things are kind of building up and adding up in your day-to-day. Yeah.
You're like that. Alyce?
I think find the humor in every day, no matter what. It changes your perspective on how hard things, like life is hard, things are gonna be thrown at you and unexpectedly. Try to find that glimmer of humor, because everything can be made funny if you have a different lens, different perspective. And just try to laugh every day. It's medicine. Go see a comedy show.
Tomorrow night?
Yeah, tomorrow night, 8 p.m.
Tomorrow night. Becs?
I would say keep trying different things. Like, humans don't like tough things. We're really set on comfort, and that's where we are at our happy place, our homeostasis, everything functions well there. But we can change that, we can level it up. So if you're finding something tough, just nudge it a little bit more, don't back away from it, because in nudging it a bit further, you might actually find a solution. And so you're just gonna keep going. And there's not one solution for everyone, just like there's not one way to train, there's not one training program for everybody. We all have different ways of doing it, and just keep going your route, because you can't compare. Like, every single one of us in this room is wildly different. We have a lot of similarities, which is what makes the human race beautiful, but we're so different. And if we can share those differences, then we find ways to work through them together, and that's the most important thing.
I love that. Oh, okay. So thank you so much to this incredible panel for sharing your wisdom and experience and laughter. Of course, that is essential. A big thank you to Uresta for leading the charge in normalizing pelvic health conversations and providing real solutions for women. So thank you for doing that. It's a great solution that you've created. Let's keep these conversations going and continue to support one another in prioritizing our health, in good health to all of you. And thank you for joining us today.